It's time for a Drummer Nation. Drummer Joe Corsello was born and raised in Stamford, Connecticut. Joe studied at Berklee under drum legend Alan Dawson and later with Joe Hunt. As the house drummer for Michael's Pub in New York, Joe backed jazz greats Red Norvo, Hank Jones, Zoot Simms, and pianist Marian McPartland. He also toured with Benny Goodman and Peggy Lee. Joe is co-founder of the jazz rock band New York Mary, which recorded 2 successful records and toured with the B-52s, Patti Smith, Stevie Wonder, and Tony Williams' Lifetime. Joe currently travels with saxophonist Sonny Rollins and can be heard on recordings with Rollins, Marian McPartland, Benny Goodman, Mike Mainari, and the list goes on.
Created specifically for practice sessions, quiet tone practice cymbals by Sabian are designed to respond and feel like traditional cymbals, right down to their clearly defined bell, so the drummers won't have to change the way they play. Quiet tone practice cymbals by Sabian.
I absolutely love playing drums, and I couldn't imagine not having that in my life. And I really, if I could help facilitate that and have an impact on your life so that you can play drums, that means the world to me.
When seated at the drums, pressure on the tailbone, lower back, and hip joints can lead to pain. Only Carmichael drum thrones are scientifically designed to relieve and prevent discomforts associated with prolonged sitting. Carmichael thrones, we got your back.
The guys from the Maynard Ferguson band, I was supposed to go with Maynard Ferguson, and on the day that I was supposed to leave with them, I got in touch with their manager from England, in London, and I told him what my situation was. I said, gee, I'm still with Benny Goodman. Marian McPartland just called me and she wants me to do a tour with her, and going with Maynard would have been a little iffy. He did 2 and 3 week tours, and I'd be back on the butts again. So I called my friend Rick Patrone and I said, Rick, what should I do? And he said, don't worry about it. He said, I got another drummer, don't worry about it. I said, okay. So they hired another drummer. But in the meantime, Rick Patrone and the baritone player Bruce Johnstone, we became very, very good friends. And we said, why don't we do something? Why don't we form our own band? Why don't we get together and we could do a couple of demos. And I was friends with John Hammond at the time, and so we put together a demo record. We had Lou Soloff, we had John Scofield on guitar, we had I think it was Bob Aries on keyboards, and we put this demo thing together, and it was a funky fusion kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And we listened to it back, and we said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, we'll try it. I'll give it to John Hammond and see what he thinks. So I gave it to John Hammond, and he immediately called me back and said, we love it. Can you guys record? And so one thing led to another, and Michael Cascuna entered once again and wanted to produce it. And he produced it for Arista Records, Clive Davis's label.
That's the record I have. Does it have a motorcycle on the front?
Yes, that's
okay.
The motorcycle on the cover is the one that was done in The Wild Ones. That was Peter Fonda's motorcycle.
Oh, it was? From the movie The Wild Ones?
Michael Cascuna had the original
which was
cover.
a Shorty Rogers score and Shelly Manne on drums.
That's right, yeah. And so the record came out, and we were still traveling with, Rick and Bruce were still with Maynard Ferguson, and I was still with Benny Goodman. And the record came out, and they called me up and said, well, what are you going to do now? Because now there's certain cities want you guys, and, we have a possibility to be an opening act at the Bottom Line. You can open up for Stevie Wonder. You can open up for this one, the B-52s, Hot Tuna. You can open up for, and we said, oh my God, we better, So we bought a van. I guess what normal rock bands do, right? And we just put all this stuff in the van. We rehearsed. We got ourselves a really good group. Schofield couldn't do it because he was on his way up the ladder. Louis Soloff didn't want to do it. He was on his way up the ladder. So we had to augment different musicians, which we did. And we got some great musicians.
It was a great band.
Yeah, it was. And we did 2 albums. We did Piece of the Apple was the second album that came out. And we were the opening act for so many, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis out at the Agora in Ohio. We were like all over the place.
I know you were opening for Tony Williams somewhat too, right?
Yes. We went out to Detroit. We played Baker's Keyboard Lounge, and then they asked us to open up for Tony Williams. So
now
Tony became really good friends.
Let me ask you about that. I imagine if I were opening for Tony, I'd be going to school on Tony every night. And you became good friends. Tell me about Tony.
I met Tony when I was studying with Alan Dawson.
I think what our cymbals brought to the Sabian family is that there is lots more hand hammering. They're all hand hammered, and so you really have to perfect the hammering technique and where to hammer on the cymbal. You know, you don't want to get the cymbal too thin in a lot of places. They were willing to try it, and I think we came out with a great product that is a great musical instrument.
We were in a lesson one day with Alan. Alan played the vibes, and he used to enjoy playing the vibes, and I would play the drum set in his studio at Berklee. And we heard a knock on the door, and he doesn't normally answer his door when he's giving a lesson.
Right.
And here's this gentleman, you know, about 16 years old, standing there, and he goes, "Oh, Anthony, how are you? Oh my God, come on in. I want you to meet Joe Corsello."
Little skinny kid, right?
Yeah, and I'm saying, "Anthony, who's Anthony?" He said, "Well, this is a drummer." He said, "A student of mine. His name is Anthony Williams, and he's going to be going on the road with Miles Davis." And I said, "Another one going on the road with Miles Davis." I said, "This is great, you know." And that's where he and Sam Rivers were very good friends from Boston, and that's how Sam Rivers eventually went with Miles Davis. You know,
I didn't know that.
You got to have somebody recommend you, and that was him. But I remember Tony saying something about, you know, Alan, I'm having trouble with my fours. He said I can't feel them that well, and you know, my choruses sometimes don't come out, you know, because I lose it sometimes when I'm trying to sing the tune, and then when I you know, years later. I would listen to all the recordings when Tony would play a drum solo, and I would always hear the same dot 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 dot, and then the band would come in, and I'm saying,
Right.
"Geez, I wonder if that was some kind of like, you know,
Cue.
key to bring the guys in, you know." And later I found out it was, because when I met Tony out at Baker's Keyboard Lounge, he had said that to me. He said, "Well, you know," he said, "some of the songs Miles would want me to just play, you know, free and just
Right.
play open solos," and I did. And then, you know, when everybody got the eye from me, you know, and I would kick them off with a dot, 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 and everybody would come back in again. So I thought that was great.
That is great. That's a good story. There's a solo in four and more, I think, like that,
Yes,
where it opens
yes,
up.
correct.
And
That's correct. But if you listen to
he
any
gets
of those
past the
big-
form.
The long drum solos that he played, if you listen to the ending, there's always some kind of a key that kicks the band back in. But I think the funniest thing was when I had to ask Tony if I could use his drums, because we were opening for him.
And this was
And
the
he said,
big
"Just don't
kit?
break anything." Yeah.
Just don't break anything?
Yeah, just don't break anything. And I said, "You got to be kidding me," you know. And it reminds me of the story because Roy Haynes and I are very good friends. And he was telling me a story about he and Buddy Rich one time. Buddy Rich was performing somewhere.
Tell me the story, because I was just going to relate it to you. I want to hear you say it.
Well, he said that he walked into the club and he was listening to Buddy Rich, and Buddy Rich saw him and acknowledged the fact that Roy Haynes just, you know, "Ladies and gentlemen, Roy Haynes, Roy, why don't you come up and play a song?" So Roy, you know, was like, "You got to be kidding me." And he brought him up on the stage, and you know, Roy's only about, what is he, 4'2" or something?
Yeah.
And he started
He's a short
adjusting
guy.
the seat, and Buddy said to him, "Oh, no. He said, "As is."
As is. Okay.
As
I heard it
is.
a little
So here's-
differently. I heard it was a Jazz at the Philharmonic tour, and Roy came up to sit at Buddy's kit, and here's Buddy back there saying, "As they are, Roy."
Yeah. So it could be the same.
Could be. Who knows what the truth is? But the story is that, I mean, a lot of kids watch his show. It's kind of the universal rule of subbing or sitting in on somebody else's kit
Right.
is you play them as they are.
Hey everybody out there in cyber world, this is Adam Nussbaum.
Hi, Dave DeCenzo here.
Hi, Bermuda Schwartz here.
Hey everyone, Stanton Moore here.
Hey guys, Johnson Pesta here.
Hey everybody, this is John J.R. Robinson.
Hi, Todd Zuckerman here for the Drum Center of Portsmouth. They're knowledgeable, they'll be able to help you and guide you and make the right choices for you and the music that you play.
From Wingnut to Wuhan, these chaps know what they're talking about. Highly recommended. But what do I know? I'm a drummer.
You know?
Happens to me all the time. And then after they're finished adjusting to their way of playing, after they played their one or two songs, then it's me to go finish the gig again, and everything is screwed up. I don't feel comfortable after that at all.
Yeah.
But
If you're watching,
that's where that came from.
if you're watching, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Just be a little
Don't mess
uncomfortable.
with- that's it.
Do the
If
best
you're
you
a midget,
can.
You got a problem. And
Yeah.
If you're 8 feet tall, you got a problem.
Right. I
Don't
mean,
mess with
sometimes
them,
it just
okay?
doesn't work, and that's the way it
Yeah.
is. But you can't go, man, I've seen guys retune the kit,
Yeah.
you know, and you go, man, you can't do that. You just can't do that.
I saw somebody do. I saw Jeff Hamilton invited me out to a club he was playing out in L.A. when I was out there playing in Santa Monica. So I went down to L.A. and I saw Jeff play, and Ralph Peterson was
Yeah?
going
Good
to
friend
go
of mine.
sit in.
Good friend of mine.
And Yeah, and Ralph Peterson immediately was starting to do that. And Jeff was sitting with me at the table. He goes, "Oh my God!" He said, "What is he doing?" So he tuned the drums down because Jeff has them pretty high, and tuned the drums all down low. And Jeff was flipping out. He's going, "Oh my God!" He said, "I had them all tuned because I was doing a record with Barbra Streisand." And he said they were tuned perfectly. And he said, "Now I'm gonna have to change the whole tuning on it." But what made insult to injury was Ralph, who's a good friend of mine also, took his stick and they started playing a calypso tune, and he started banging the right side of the floor tom down really hard. And Jeff was sitting there going, "Oh no!" He said, "There goes all my paint. There goes the."
Oh well, Ralph's a dear friend of mine too. Jeff's my business partner. Ralph's a dear friend. We call each other brothers from another mother. So I love the man, but I think him and Jeff worked that out eventually.
Yeah.
Because I know they're still friends. And they're labeled. They're endorsement mates now. They're both in Mapex.
That's right. Yes. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jeff went to Mapex.
Wow.
It's been announced. I'm not letting any cat out of the bag. It was a big thing at the NAMM show.
My new site, Stanton Moore Drum Academy, is the perfect online drum learning platform for any level drummer to learn how to play the drums the same way I did, with the advantage of having me road test the material on hundreds of stages, countless clinics, lessons, and master classes, and dozens of studio sessions every year. On the site, you'll find over 13 hours of video, dozens of written lessons, and fresh material gets added all the time. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you as subscribers on the site, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Well, it's like buying clothes, I find, with drums. It's just everywhere you go, somebody's got a new product out. They want you to endorse it and say, "Well, I have a couple of months left on DW, so I'll try it." And so that's how I ended up with the Ludwig, WFL Ludwig, the third.
You're with B3?
Well, he made me a beautiful 6.5 by 14, which is incredible. And he sent it out to me, did it in maple, and it was absolutely a gorgeous drum. And then about 2 weeks later, after I fell in love with his drum, Longo sent me a snare drum. He and I went to the Delaware drum show together, and he had given me a snare drum, and it was a 5 by 14. And I'm using that on every gig now, and I am so in love with that snare drum that I got rid of all my snare drums except for the one that Roy Haynes gave me, the signature Yamaha that he had at his house when I went to visit him. I got rid of 13 snare drums. It was just, I love this Longo drum. There's something about it, the response. If you just touch it, it just rings and it sings out beautiful. And it's just, I don't know what, he's, Neil Longo is a carpenter by trade, and he cuts trees down, and he actually uses, I guess he uses the whole tree, so there's no seam in it.
Yeah, single ply they call it. Solid shell.
Just incredible.
Yeah, those are wonderful. Craviotto did a lot of those too.
Yes,
Danette does a few too. They're wonderful single ply drums, and it's like the old Radio Kings. I think were that way.
Just beautiful drums. I mean, they're expensive, but they're really worth it.
You get what you pay for.
Takes them a long time to make it, and it's just. I think Vinny Caliuto uses Longo snare drums, if I'm not mistaken, because he keeps shipping him different snare drums, and I think that's one he uses. But it's a great snare drum. Yeah.
Isn't it? I've talked to several artists about this. If you're a jazz player, you want to play acoustic jazz, mainstream, a little spacey, whatever it is, just acoustic jazz.
Right.
We're not as interested in all when it goes to bigger shells and smaller shells and nodal lugs and power toms and all this stuff, because I think the sonic space for that music was ironed out a long time ago.
Right.
Yes. You're not going to improve much on an open bass drum sound with an upright bass. Right. That's already been figured out. Right. So I think guys playing that style are a little less receptive to every newfangled thing.
Well, it's like what Paul Francis tells me every time I go up to Zildjian. He sent me the new Kenny Washington cymbal when that came out.
Right.
They send me everything new. Zildjian is just absolutely. I can't say enough about Zildjian.
Paul knows his stuff too, man.
Yeah, and Paul is just incredible.
Yes.
And Paul makes so much sense when he speaks, because I tried the Kenny Washington when he sent it to me, and I said, I can't play this cymbal. There's too much wash. There's this, that, and the other thing. And then I played a festival opposite Kenny Washington, and he had the same exact cymbal because I took mine with me, and I hit his and I hit mine, and it sounded so close it was ridiculous. But it's all in how you play it. You know, it's just like Bill Stewart. I mean, you could get a dry complex ride. It's not going to sound anything the way Bill plays it. I mean, because he's got that perfect kind of like, you know, the tip on it, and then he uses the shaft and knows when to hit it, and just get the beautiful sounds out of that cymbal.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Bill's a very good friend of mine. He wrote the foreword to my book.
Okay.
And I asked him, and I said, Bill, how do you know, how come your cymbal doesn't sound like my cymbal? And he said, well, it should. He says, I use mine for trio gigs. I said, trio gigs? I said, you got to be kidding me. And when I see him playing with Kevin Hayes or somebody, and they're just doing a trio gig, or with Peter Bernstein, he uses that exact cymbal. And when he's playing with Seamus Blake and six horns, he uses the exact cymbal. Well, and it fits in both contexts. It's just absolutely incredible.
I was in the gear business for 10 or 12 years, cymbals specifically. Right. And I hate to admit it, but most of it is the guy or the gal playing.
Right.
You know,
right.
You can listen to examples of Tony Williams in Europe in the 60s where he's playing Paiste,
yes.
which is kind of the genetic opposite of old K's.
Yes.
And he still sounds like Tony, man.
Right.
You know?
Right. And the drum set he was playing on, I mean, it was a 20-inch bass drum, and everyone that has an 18 is trying to get the Tony Williams sound. And I said, well, he was using a 20-inch. And they said, no, it was an 18. And I said, no, I'm sorry, it was a 20. And everyone is out trying to get that kind of Tony Williams sound out of the drums. But if you take a really good drummer, and I've said this a million times, you could go to Costco and you could buy a drum set for $220. And you got a really good drummer playing it, it's going to sound phenomenal.
It's going to sound
absolutely phenomenal.
And the other thing is, I know so many great drummers where I've had the luxury of, they stand up, hey, can I play your kit? Sure. So I sit down and I play their kit. I can't get their sound.
Right.
I can't get their sound. I mean, I've done it on Erskine's kit and Ralph and Jeff and the whole Stanton, boatloads of drummers. And I want to see what they're about and where they're at and what they're hearing. But I mean, I can't sit down at your kit and get your sound with your sticks.
Right. It's just like, you know, when I go to see Adam Nussbaum, or if he knows I'm in the club listening to him, he calls me up to come up and play a couple of songs. And I don't feel comfortable behind his drums at all. And I don't touch anything. But I mean, you know, where he uses his 8x12, it's almost where the snare drum should be. And he sits way back in his seat because, you know, the way Adam plays, it's like, you know, he's ready to take off. And I just feel very, very uncomfortable. And Bill Stewart, the same thing. Bill, if you watch the way Bill plays, I mean, not only hand-wise, I mean, you know, when I tell my students, you can't play like this. You can't play that French style like you're playing timpani. And then I immediately think of Bill Stewart, and I'm saying, my God, you know, this man is amazing. How can he play that way? And he uses the French grip when he's playing. I mean, it's not the German grip. It's not the traditional. It's not the match grip. I mean, he plays. You sit there with your mouth open. You're saying, this can't be possible. And he does it in such a way. Like the next time you see him play, it's
I'll look for that.
You know, it's ridiculous.
I think one thing we're finding out with all these great exposés on, you know, whole double DVDs devoted to his hands and like, well, you know, the ones that are out there. There's some great products. What is becoming apparent is that all those styles are okay. You know, the Steve Smith is talking. He's got a new book on all that stuff, and he's got, you know, the French, the German, the American. Symmetrical, asymmetrical, match grip, traditional grip.
Right.
What he found out is all that shit works. You know, it's got to be what works for you.
It's got to be what works for you.
But
and Bill Stewart's the perfect example.
Yeah, who's going to say, Bill, you can't do that?
Yeah. And Peter Erskine, a very good friend of mine, and I see him all the time. He comes here to Stamford to record at the Carriage House here all the time. And it's the same thing. I mean, he plays traditional, you know, when he's playing, then all of a sudden he flips the slick over, he's playing match grip. I mean, and his touch and his feel is amazing.
Sure.
You know, so again, whatever works, it's, you know.
Right.
The money drummers, though, like, you know, I refer to them as money drummers, like, you know, the Jeff Hamiltons, the Peter Erskines, the Steve Gadds. Those are money drummers. Those are the guys that you call in, and when the clock starts ticking and it's $5,000 a minute, that's the guy you want to have.
It's going to be right first take.
It's going to be right the first time. It's going to be perfect. Yeah.
People don't realize that. You know, I used to in other markets, you get out of New York and LA, the big markets, Nashville, and people say, "Well, I heard that film score. I think I could do that," but they just saw it. It's not like they worked it up, man. They saw it that day and had a stab at it. Maybe they looked at a tough part before they ran it, but that's it. If you don't get it in the first take, you're the guy who used to be playing drums there.
Right. and it's basically, it's the same. When I don't teach that much anymore because I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. So when I do have a couple of students, they're going to be students that are like from Manhattan School of Music. They'll call me and they'll come up, take the train up to Stanford.
Serious students.
Yeah, and then I won't see them again for a month. Right. But when I do teach them, and what I try to tell them is, it's 90% of what you feel in here, and the 10% is in here. I mean, if you look at drummers like Dave Liebman, I heard Dave Liebman play drums one night. I was somewhere with Dave. And the drummer asked him to, he was trying to show somebody how to play something. And he sat behind the drums. And I went, oh, my God. I said, this guy should be a drummer. I said, he's incredible. Chick Corea. I mean, if you ever saw Chick Corea sit behind a set of drums, it would be like, wow. So they're playing really 90% of what's in their heart. Mm-hmm. And the other 10% is here. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys, and I saw this in the Army, too, going back to the Army band. All the drummers in our drum line, I mean, they would sit for hours and hours and hours working rudiments out, working this out, working that out with huge logs for sticks. Guys with metal drumsticks ruining all their tendons in their hands and everything else, playing ridiculous things. But then when you ask them to sit behind a drum set, they couldn't play like 4 beats in a row with a metronome in time, And that's what I try to tell my students. It's more like what you feel inside here. I mean, all my drummers play totally different, which I don't want anybody walking out of here playing like Joe Corsello. That I definitely don't want.
That's the mark of a great teacher.
Yeah. And do I want to play like Tony Williams? No. I want to enjoy Tony Williams. I think, do I want to play like Bill Stewart? No. And in the middle of a session, sometimes I'll say, well, gee, Bill would have done this. And then I got to get that out of my head because I don't want to do that. Why would they hire me when they could have got Bill Stewart?
They hired you for a reason.
So, Yeah. So it's just the individualism has to be there. It has to, all of us drummers have to do something different because why would they call us, And playing a lot is another thing where, drummers today, like I can't listen to music past like 1970. I can't listen to the new stuff that's out there today on Blue Note Records. I mean, the drummers like, I have trouble finding where one is, and all they're doing is playing a drum solo behind the saxophone solo, and it's just playing too much. It's like, what Miles had said many, many years ago, less is more, You take a drummer like Adam Nussbaum, and who just knows exactly where to put things. Bill Stewart knows exactly where to put things, and it's not they're just sitting there in a barrage of drums and cymbals and it's just,
I agree.
It's crazy.
It's putting listening
by the minute.
It's putting listening below playing, and it should be the other way around.
Right.
You have to listen and complement what's going on.
Exactly.
And I hear that in some young drummers too, and it's just too aggressive. On the other hand, they're young kids. It's a different generation. I hear kids that can do more with their feet than I can do with my hands. I don't hear music that way. I don't hear on the bass drum. I'm not interested in it. But it doesn't speak to me. It speaks to them. Hi, this is Michael Vosbine, your host for Drummer Nation, and I do the show as a labor of love, but I could use a little help. If you'd like to be a patron of the show, please go to the site patreon.com/drummernation. Help us out. Thanks.
Well, Bill Stewart and I were at the Modern Drummer Festival they had it close by, so I went. It was at SUNY for the first time. I had gone to the one in Jersey for many years, and it was just a pain to drive to. But I went to the one in SUNY Purchase, and Bill and I we were sitting backstage, and he said to me, he was just shaking his head. There was a drummer performing. I could mention probably 30 of them, but he would sit there and play a single stroke roll and open it up and back down again. He would stand on his head and play with his feet and play with, and Bill and I would just sit there and and I'm watching him shaking his head like. He called it Drum Olympia. He said this is like going to like
that's what Roy Burns. Roy Burns called them Olympic drummers.
Yeah, Olympic drums.
Olympic drummers, like somebody's going to win.
If that's your thing, that's perfect. If
hey,
the way you want to do it,
God bless them.
Great.
If they can find an audience for it, they're making music they believe in. Hamilton likes to say, not everybody is meant to play with each other. And that's okay.
Jake Anna said, "Do you want to be a drummer?" He said, "What you got to do is go out and buy 4 metronomes and set them at different tempos, and that's what it's like to play in a rhythm section." And Jake was such a great guy. He's such a great guy.
I love Jake.
Funny.
One of the funniest guys I ever knew.
I remember being at the NAMM show that you were talking about, and it was either a NAMM show or a PASIC show I was at, and Bosporus Cymbals had come out with a new line or something.
Yeah, that was me back then.
Oh, okay, yeah. And I'm trying this one, and I'm trying that one. I said, "Boy, this one really sounds good." And I tried this one. I said, "Wow, this one sounds better." I said, and then I felt a tap on my shoulder, and it was Jake. And he said, "Joe, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm just listening to the new cymbals." And he said, "I got to tell you something." He said, "Cymbals are like cologne." He said, "After you've smelled 1 or 2, they all smell exactly the same."
But Jake's Gamer was like an 18-inch cymbal from the 50s or something that he never changed. I mean, that was his ride for the rest of his life.
Yep.
And he made it work on everything he did.
Oh, he was a tremendous guy.
Yeah.
He was such a ball to be around. And his niece, she had written a book about him, and she put that quote in from me. And then I went on a book tour with her and told her all my stories.
Okay.
Jake, and
I need to get that
really
book.
Funny.
I don't have that book. Well, I'll let you go pretty soon. One other thing I wanted to say, you mentioned some of these guys, these characters we used to have in the industry that we don't really have around anymore. Lenny DiMuzio,
yes.
Jim Chapin, I'm spacing now. The teacher.
Well, Vic Firth. I mean, those guys. Remo. I mean, they were all special people.
Armin Zildjian. Freddie Gruber.
Yeah.
There was a piece of work for you. Yeah, but they were characters, man, and everybody loved them.
I had breakfast with him one morning, and the whole place was staring at the two of us because all he was doing was his boxing routine. He would get up, he'd have a bite of egg, and he would stand up and say, "No, Joe, when you got to play, you got to, like, when you go to punch someone in the face."
Yeah, he had all that stuff, and dancing above the floor or on the floor or below the floor. And
I know. But when you talk about characters, I mean, Lenny was the man. Lenny was such a sweetheart. He was... He basically, formed my whole career for me, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing Zildjian. I wouldn't be doing all the drum companies that I do. It would be, Lenny was just my guy.
Well, catch me up to today, and then I'll let you go. What are you doing nowadays?
Nowadays, I'm playing locally. I'm doing all kinds. It's been like, knock on wood. My phone has been ringing like it's going out of style. Just playing local gigs, which is great.
Yeah.
Which is great for me. I'm home a lot more. I'm sick of the road. I've done it, been there. The whole Sonny Rollins thing was a great experience.
Oh, yeah, I can't let you go without talking about Sonny Rollins. I'm sorry about that. Tell me about working with Sonny Rollins.
Well, Sonny was, I was at a NAMM show in New York City when they had it at the 2 hotels. And I had heard that Sonny Rollins was going to be doing a 4-person panel discussion. And I said, I got to go. I just to meet the guy, I had to see him, because my brother Richard has been with Sonny Rollins for like 35 years. He's his engineer.
Oh,
and
okay.
He did all the recordings for Sonny. And my brother had moved out to the West Coast, lived in San Francisco. And he and Sonny became really good friends 35 years ago. And he looked at my brother as being like a son. And my brother saw me at the panel discussion, and he said, I got to tell you, Sonny's auditioning drummers. He's doing a new recording in a studio, and he's going to be he's auditioning drummers. So he said, "Why don't you stop by?" And I said, "Yeah, I got a better chance of winning the lotto than I did, playing with Sonny Rollins." He said, No, really, just come by." He said, "Just come by and play a song with Sonny." He said, "There's like 40 drummers." He said, "That can't wait to come in." He said, "Just come in." He said, "Just play. What can you lose?"
Right.
He said, "It's right across the street. We're at Avatar." He said, "Just come in." So I went over to the studio, and Sonny, I met Sonny, and changed my pants a couple of times, sweating profusely, shook his hand. I didn't even have to shake. I was already shaking. So we sat down and we played, he wanted me to play something in 3. He said, "I can't." He said, "I must tell you." He said, "I've had drummers come in here, and when I tell them the song is in 3, I get the pa 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 pa." He said, "If you could stay away from that, I'd appreciate it." And I said, "Whatever." And we played the song, and he looked at me, and I figured, well, that's it. I did my thing. I'm out of here. He said, no, let's play something in 4. And the funniest line he said to me was, he said, we're gonna trade some 4s and some 8s, and maybe I'll give you a chorus. He said, but I want you, just keep this in mind. He said, don't play any of that Jack DeJohnette shit behind me. And I said, and I looked at him, I said, Sonny, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about that.
Don't worry about that. I wonder what he meant by that.
Because Jack, I guess Jack I don't know if he threw him off or, Jack played too much or Jack was too good or something.
Probably a little too rhythmically
right.
over the bar,
so
yeah.
I said, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about me throwing any of that stuff, man. And I got some funny stories about Jack DeJohnette. But anyway, so we played the song. We were trading 4s, we were trading 8s and everything. And that was it. So I left, and I told him how great it was to meet him and everything. And about 2 weeks later, I got a call from Sonny Rollins. And he said he was going out to the West Coast and would I like to join the band. And he gave me the names of the guys in the band with Bob Cranshaw and everything. And I said, you got to be kidding me. He said, no. He said, I'm using Steve Jordan, but Steve Jordan's leaving to go play with Eric Clapton. So I would love to have you. Like,
Steve Jordan. I don't see Steve Jordan on that gig for some reason. I'm sure he sounded great, but it's not what I would think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and the first night we opened up at UC Davis out in San Francisco, I think it was, and it was like, I've never seen an auditorium so big in my entire life. I mean, it sat 5,000 people, and it was like people were behind me up in balconies and stuff, and I was in the green room, and I was just shaking. I said, I don't believe this. But who got me through it was Bob Cranshaw. Bob Cranshaw and I became unbelievably good friends, and he took me right under his arm on all the tours, and we hung out together. And his nephew was in the band at the time. Clifton Anderson was playing trombone, and he was another one that just took me right under his wing. So between those two guys, I just felt so comfortable. And we had a ball.
Get by with a little help from your friends.
Yeah, and to this day, I speak to Sonny. He's really kind of changed his phone number now where it's unlisted, and he doesn't want to talk to anybody. But the last time I spoke with him, which was probably last September, rang. I was down in Florida, and it said no caller ID, and I very rarely would answer a phone like that, thinking it's somebody trying to sell me something. So, in any event, I answered it. I was paying my bill at the hotel, and I see this no caller ID, so I answered. I said hello, and it was Sonny, and he just said, I just wanted to say hello, and this and the other thing. But we talked for about an hour on the phone. And I had the feeling that he was trying to say goodbye to me, and it was really weird because Sonny and I, for all the years that I was with him, and truly did end up being the drummer on his last recorded CD. Sonny Please is myself and Steve Jordan. I just had the feeling like something. I said, Sonny, are you okay? He said, yeah. No, I'm just calling. And he said, I'm ready to go to the next universe, and I'm ready to do this and everything. And I got so depressed after I talked to him on the phone, and then I tried calling him because we used to speak at least once a week. And I called, and it said, I'm sorry, this number's been disconnected. And all the guys, Mark Soskin in the band, Bob Cranshaw passed away, so. But then I spoke to Sammy Figueroa, and I said, Sammy, have you talked to Sonny? He said, no, I've been trying to call him. He said, I can't get through. I haven't talked to Sonny in over a year. So I think he was just really saying goodbye to people, and that was it. So, but all of our conversations never was about music. We would spend 2-3 hours on a telephone at night, and it was always about the next universe, where the country's going, talk about politics. He would tell me about Joe Beam and tell me about different stories that Joe Beam one time looked up in a Jeep, and he was lost and saw all of a sudden it was all cloudy, and the clouds opened up and the sun came down, and then Joe Beam knew where he was, and it was very strange. It was great. It was really refreshing when I got off the phone.
I'm not surprised to hear what you said about not talking about music. I asked Marty Morell. I said, when you were with Bill Evans, you guys were putting together a style thing. Did you ever talk about that? He said, never.
Yeah.
Never talk music, just play.
Never talk music. Yeah. We never, I only remember we were at we did a festival in San Diego, And I don't know what it was. It was outside. It was very hot. It was like, and I'm like feeling really good. I was hanging out with Bob Cranshaw the night before. We were talking about a million things. I mean, you talk about a person with an education. I mean, there's a guy that's played with Tony Williams and could tell you millions of different stories. Lee Morgan, Freddie Hubbard, he's been with them all.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I was overplaying or I just felt very confident now because this was like the 56th concert we had done, and now I'm thinking, man, I'm with Sonny Rollins, man. I can do whatever I want. It's great. And Sonny called me. I remember the phone ringing about 2 o'clock in the morning because Sonny never slept. And Joe, I said, yeah, Sonny. And I said, hey, Sonny, how are you? How's it going? And we started talking. He said, listen, he said, I just want to tell you, he said, I want you to relax. I want you to relax a little more when you're playing. And I said, oh boy, here it comes, And he said, no, I really enjoy what you're doing, but you just got to relax a little more. It's like, sometimes I get like, when I'm playing and I'm playing my 50th chorus on a song. He said, it's just too much on the drums. If you could just kind of cool it. And after that, and like I said, each one of these things for a drummer is a learning experience. I mean, the Benny Goodmans, how to play with Benny Goodman, Glenn Miller, how to play with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. How do you go from Benny Goodman to Sonny Rollins? I mean, when you think about it, it's almost hysterical.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a learning experience, and all of these people that you're playing with is an experience. It's an education because they're telling you what they want. You as a drummer don't go up there and play what you want. You got hired because they called you, and it's what they want. And that's another point that I think should be mentioned, to a lot of students. It's just you get up there, you start losing your mind, and you start playing all kinds of stuff, to show off in front of other drummers that they should be in the room, or you're trying to do new things that you practiced all day long. But the leader doesn't want to hear that. The leader just wants you to play time. That's all. And it's like the Joe Hunts and the Alan Dawsons, and that's where I've learned all of this stuff. They're not calling you because they want you to play a drum solo. That's the last thing they want to hear. Right. They just want to play time, and they want you to lock in with the rhythm section, a la Steve Gadd. That's what Steve is known for, just playing in a pocket and really feeling good, And then you can throw all that other stuff in later. I mean, when it feels good and you've really got the pocket happening, and you've played with this person for, numerous times, then it all falls right into place. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the interview, man. This has been wonderful talking to you.
Well,
I'm going to let you go before that sun eats you alive. It keeps crawling up your shirt there.
Oh, yeah. I'm right under a skyline.
Yeah. No, it was fine. It was fine. Okay. But it's been my honor to have you on the show. You'll do it. You got a million stories we haven't even touched yet. Can you do it again sometime for me?
I certainly could, and I really appreciate the call. And thank you so much. This is great.
All right, Joe. Take care, and we'll talk real soon.
All right, Michael. Thank you.
This is your host, Michael Vosbine, and I'd like to thank our friends at Sabian Cymbals, Sound Synergies, Stanton Moore Drum Academy, and Drum Center of Portsmouth. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.